Pokemon Legends ZA is pretty much exactly what you would expect from the series. The same formula being used for almost 30 years. But guess what? It works and it sells. The latest entry is the first time we're getting a Pokemon game on the Nintendo Switch 2, but don't be fooled, this is in no way a next-gen Pokemon game. At the core of it, it's a Nintendo Switch 1 game that's really been slightly enhanced for Switch 2. Nintendo has this huge focus on supporting Switch 1, and I don't blame them. There's over 150 million of them out there. That's a huge install base. For that reason, they're going to continue to release cross-platform games between Switch 1 and Switch 2 for as long as they possibly can. Some might say Switch 1's holding back the Switch 2. So let's talk about how this new Pokemon game runs and looks on Nintendo Switch 1 versus Switch 2. Let's start with the game size. The game's 4.1 gigabytes on Switch 1 and 7.7 gigabytes on Switch 2. Now, there's no cloud saves for these games. That's quite common for Pokemon games. For someone like me that plays on both their Switch 1 and Switch 2, I have to manually transfer the data over from one console to the other to continue playing across different consoles. Loading times are also different. Continuing from dashboard takes 12 seconds on Switch 2 and 22 seconds on Switch 1. So the new console is about 2 times faster. We get a similar trend when fast traveling, only 3 seconds on Switch 2 and 6 seconds on Switch 1. Next up are the visuals and graphics. For the most part, the game looks pretty much identical. The main difference is of course resolution and frame rate. In handheld mode, Switch 1 runs the game at 720p resolution and 30 FPS. Switch 2 of course has a larger 1080p display, and in portable mode, Switch 2 runs Pokemon Legends ZA at 1080p and 60 FPS. In docked mode, the trend is somewhat similar. Switch 1 does upscale to 1080p resolution while docked, but the common resolution is closer to 800p. On Switch 2, the game's clearly sharper. There's 4K upscaling in docked mode, but the common resolution's likely dipping as low as 1080p. The big advantage with Switch 2 is the smoother performance, 60 frames per second. There's no HDR integration for this game. I mean, Switch 1 doesn't support HDR, but even Switch 2 here doesn't include that feature. Frame rate performance is compared next. Switch 1 targets 30 FPS, but there are drops. Drops of 1 to 2 frames are fairly common, but there's also even instances where you get more significant stuttering as low as 25 to 26 FPS. Being a game that's nothing special in terms of graphics, Switch 2 can run it easily. A solid lock 60 FPS without any drops. So I guess the main reason to play this on Switch 2 is the higher and more stable 60 FPS. This is a game that has a slow pace. It's not some high intensity action adventure. 60 FPS might not even be that important. Until now, Pokemon fans have always been used to and been okay with 30 FPS. It doesn't make any sense to upgrade to a Switch 2 for Pokemon Legends ZA only. You can even play the game on the tiny and cheap Nintendo Switch Lite and have more or less the exact same experience. In that sense, if you look at this game in a bubble, sure, the Switch 1 is holding back the Switch 2. Legends ZA for me was a step back from Pokemon Legends Arceus and even from Pokemon Scarlet Violet. I mean, there's just the one zone to explore, Luminous City. I was so looking forward to leaving the city and exploring the outside world, but then I found out you can't. Exploring different maps, different regions, that's been one of the core aspects of Pokemon games for almost 30 years. So it's kind of sad to have it completely missing here. It makes the whole game feel even more repetitive, and Pokemon games are as repetitive as they come. I personally give this game a 6 out of 10. I think it's one of the worst Pokemon games in a while. Hopefully Nintendo gives us a true next-gen Switch 2 title for the next one. So that's my technical review of Pokemon Legends ZA and how it runs on Switch 1 versus Switch 2. I am planning on doing a separate video of the battery life across all the different Switch consoles, so follow my channel for updates on that. For the rest of the video, check out some more side-by-side gameplay with that FPS counter shown.